Okay. Hi everyone, thanks for coming. This is going to be a talk about content moderation in core. Okay, we have a relatively long table of contents, but I assure you that some of these topics are pretty fast. We're talking about a new core functionality. Okay, but first, introduction. Okay, this is who I am. This fellow on, I guess, our right, that's me. I'm smiling. Maybe I'm a little delirious. I don't know. You know, it's the end of the Philadelphia Marathon, so hey, right? Okay, I work at Memorial Sloan Kettering, as I said in the previous slide. It's a great, pretty awesome place to work. Mostly this slide is the t-shirt that we all wear when we're running. So imagine a world without cancer. If you see that t-shirt in that color, that's us. Okay, so let's dive right in. Okay, the overview. So, content moderation module allows you to expand on Drupal's unpublished and published states for content. It allows you to have a published version that is live, but have a separate working copy that is undergoing review before it is published. This is achieved by using workflows to apply different states to entities as needed. I wrote that. Felt like it was good to, repeat because it's just on point. Workflow initiative. Okay, content moderation is a part of the workflow initiative. Okay. What is the workflow initiative? So the workflow initiative, from the background, is to bring new features, okay, and include functionality in core based on what contrib modules have done for many years. Okay, the goals of the content initiative, workflow initiative, excuse me. Bring major improvements to Drupal's content workflow, previewing and staging capabilities, and much of this capability is already being done. It takes a heavy inspiration from modules such as workbench moderation. Okay, we're going to be looking most specifically, let's take one quick look at the workflow initiative page, as long as the internet is cooperating. It is, right? There are many phases to this initiative, right? But we're going to be spending the most of today looking at the phase C, which is the content moderation module. Okay, so we'll start with workflows. Workflows allows you to manage workflow with states and transitions. Okay, we're going to be talking mostly about states, transitions, permissions, and users today. Okay. Content moderation is a core module of HANA. Is workflow. Okay, workflows configuration. Okay, when you enable the content moderation module, this is what you get out of the box. You get an editorial workflow. We're going to go into this in detail for now. Okay, configuring a workflow. Okay, a workflow consists of states and transitions. Okay, what is a workflow? What is workflow really? Okay, this is the content moderation module out of the box workflow. Okay, so that means, wrong one. That means that when you enable the module, you get this workflow. Okay. So, what are we doing here? Let's say I'm the user, this little circle here, right? I can create a piece of content that goes into draft. We're not talking about users and permissions yet. We're going to start simple, right? And this is what you get out of the box. So now a piece of content is in draft. I can publish that, and then I can archive it, and then I can restore it. While it's in draft, I can create new draft. While it's published, I can create I can edit it and publish it. How that looks is this. Okay, we go to content, add a piece of content, a basic page. Okay, this is going to be page 1. It's a draft. Okay? Okay, fine. This that you're looking at here, all of this here, this is brand new. Okay, we're going to talk about this in detail. It's a form. Don't have to look at this now. Okay, I have a piece of content that is in draft and it is unpublished. Right? Draft doesn't mean published, it means unpublished. Get rid of that one. Okay, now I want to publish this, so I change it to published. Now I have a piece of content that is published. Okay? So I moved its state from draft to published. Okay? Okay, this piece of content is no longer relevant to my website, so now I'm going to move it into archived, unpublished. So I change its state Now it is unpublished. That is really what we're looking at. This is a workflow. This is the out-of-the-box workflow when you enable the module. There's only one change. I'll mention this again. There's only one thing that you have to watch out for, and that is to remember in your editorial workflow to add a content type to it. And we'll talk about this in more detail as we go forward. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at is about that, right? Is about a draft, but what we want is a review process, we want a request publish process, then we want to publish, and then the archiving and so forth and so on. And the reason why we want this is because where I work, we have a lot of content, okay? This content has any number of eyes on it before it goes into publication. We want to be able to moderate the content. We want to have authors, we want to have editors, there's going to be legal, there's going to be any number of states and transitions between those states in order for a piece of content to be ready for publication. And that's what the system is really all about. So we're going to look at these new states and transitions, and I'm going to show you how they're created. Okay, states, that's the first thing we'll start with. Okay, here's a definition. States are the different statuses your content can have, such as draft, published, etc. Okay? So what we did is we added 2 new states to the workflow. Those 2 states are called review and request publish. Okay? These are the 2 hardest slides. We're at the hardest slides to understand in the presentation. I'm just giving the heads up on this one. Because states can be published or a default revision. It's this dialog box that is just tricky. Right? So let's go through this, right? When content reaches the state, it should be published. That's the publish checkbox. Right? We're creating a state called review. The second one is really the tricky one, the default revision. When content reaches this state, it should be made the default revision. This is implied for published states. Okay, what does that mean? I'm not really sure. Okay? So here's the best I can come up with but this is you practice this and you work on it and you will and this will work out for you. This is not like it's a faulty system. I do think the verbiage in this dialog could use a little bit of work, but these are the definitions that I come up for these 2. Okay, published means it updates the core publishing status to published, otherwise it's updated to unpublished. Okay? A state marked default revision updates the current status to be the default revision when loading the entity. Okay, not much more clarity to my definitions, but for what we're doing, we don't have to dwell on that, because what we're doing is we're creating 2 new states, both of which are states that are not published states, right? If you recall, right, we're going to be doing here, I think the next slide shows the moderation workflow again, right? So I have a new state of review and a new state of publish, okay? So in terms of the difficulty of understanding these 2 checkboxes, just work with it, because like I said, this needs a little bit of fine-tuning. I think it performs the function that you want, but we have to we have a lot to go through. We're not publishing on those states, so we're good to go. Okay, transitions. Okay, here's a definition of transitions. Transitions are the actual workflow that moves the content between states. That means these gray lines. Those are the transitions. Okay, these are the default transitions that come with a configured editorial workflow, so there are no surprises. Okay, now we have a review state. We're going to add that review state to ready for review and request publish. We're going to make transitions of that. Yes. Okay. And we're going to move content back and forth between the review and the draft and review states. Okay, here we're doing that. Okay. Okay, the request publish transition will allow content under review to be changed to the state of request publish. Right, because we'll get back to the schema into the diagram in a moment, right? But because we have a request, and then the final one is we're adding, yes, request publish to the publish transition. That way we can actually get published content. Okay, again, we'll have another look at this, because the idea here is that, okay, well, let's ignore draft and the fact that you can create draft, create draft, create draft. Okay, I finished with my draft, but I want to create a review. Oh, now I send it off to review, or that user sends it off to review. Okay, this is slightly misnamed. It could be create new. Well, it's not new review. You're actually just keeping it in draft state, although you're keeping it as a draft, although its state is review. Okay, that's what we're doing That's what I'm talking about here, is to make sure that you can transition code, you can transition content from the states that you want. And again, it's a puzzle, right? You have to work at it and solve it. But one of the things that we'll look at if we have time is how you can sort of strand a user, and I'll show you what that means. Hopefully we'll have time for that. That's okay. Good. Applying the workflow. This is what I was talking about earlier, okay? So, arranging the order of statuses and transitions to your liking. This is easy stuff. We've all been working in Drupal for a long time, right? Raise your hands if you haven't, right? We'll talk about that. You know, you can just tug these little, whatever we call those things, around and get them. There's a reason for doing that, and we'll see that shortly. Okay, now, this is what I said about making sure that you are actually applying the workflow here, okay? Because you've done all this work with your states and your transitions, right? But you don't see it. Where's my workflow? So here I have this slide, telling the story with the slides. The slides are up on the Drupal Philadelphia page, and the configuration that we're building is available on GitHub. Okay, so we just make these few changes, and there's my workflow. Okay? We have a before, and we have an after. Brand new functionality in core. Okay, hold on a second. Who gets to do all this stuff, right? We got drafts, we got reviews, we're going to request publish, we're going to publish stuff, we're going to archive stuff. Who gets to do this? Not everyone, right? Because we want we want a process that it's not preventing people from doing things, but that they can feel confident that their work is going to be reviewed, and if there are any problems with it, it can go back. You know, that's how workflows work. Okay, how do we do this? Roles and permissions. Okay, again, we're in the land of Drupal core, right? We need some roles for this. Okay, let's make an author, a reviewer, and a publisher role. Right? This is Drupal. This is Drupal since Drupal 6. That's when I started. I guess maybe it was in Drupal at 5. I'm not sure. Permissions, we need permissions. Okay, there are a whole new set of permissions, and these two need a little bit of fine-tuning. Not from me, but from you as you learn what permissions to give, right? This is where, this actually just shows you your transitions in alphabetical order. So ordering your transitions on this page is not as important as ordering your states. Ordering your states is important so that it makes sense to you when you're trying to change a state. Okay, I'll get to that. I'll emphasize that again. The only thing that comes up as even close to a gotcha is this last one, which is the view the latest version requires to view any unpublished content or view own unpublished content permission. Okay, so this one for the author, right? For the creator of the content, right? This one can be problematic, and if we have time, I'll show you. Just keep that in mind as you do your settings, because what can happen is sometimes what I found as I was setting this up is that you cannot do this one down here, view own unpublished content, and an author role, right, creates his or her content, saves it, and all of a sudden they can't edit it. Right, that's the one. This is the one thing that came close to a gotcha. Other than that, it's really smooth sailing, I assure you. But there's a lot here, and you gotta sort of sift through it to get it all working. Okay, we have permissions for reviewers. Reviewers get to do a little bit more. They get to work on any unpublished content. Makes sense, right? Because the reviewer in this case is going to be reviewing the author's work. I think I'm calling him author, not editor. Right? And then publisher. Well, we have these folks to do pretty much everything, so they get everything. Again, like I say, node permissions, right? Have to just mention these in one quick slide. Your node permissions may make an impact on your content moderation. Just keep it in mind. If something isn't working, you want to go back to these screens and just set them up. Work on them. Get them working for you, so that you don't end up in a case where, like, say, an author can no longer edit his work. That's what I mean by stranded. Okay, users. Great. Look, we created roles, we created permissions. Now we need some users. Publisher, reviewer, author. No sweat. We've all been working with Drupal for a long time. This is core functionality, right? Cool stuff, right? Brand new thing in core. Okay. Now that workflow, content moderation, permissions, node permissions, and users are configured, let's moderate some content. All right. So the author creates a page, saves it as a draft. Okay, now we're going to talk about this new content moderation, entity moderation form. Okay, when the author saved this page as a draft, because the author has the option to do more than one thing, in this case, save a draft and send it to review, the author sees this form. So when I first saw this form, I was like, what is that? Get it out of my sight, right? But then after just a few minutes, I was like, cool, this is a good thing. This is a new feature, and I like it. I showed this thing to our senior level content editors, and they were like, what is that thing? Get rid of it. I don't like it. But then I said, no, wait, it'll grow on you. And it did grow on them. But they said to me finally, well, look, we get it, but the next level of editors in our group might not get it. What do we do? Okay, well, this isn't a code session, but honestly, this is Drupal, so you just hook it away, right? Hook form ID alter, okay? I'm just putting the code here for the sense of completeness, right? This code goes into a module file. That's it. If you don't have permission to administer site administration, which is unlikely for many editors, they will not see this form. They will have access of false. Okay? It's Drupal. It's the strength of the framework that you can do things like this. So now they'll never see that. Okay. So we're back to our content. Okay, the author makes an edit, changes the state to review. Okay, very nice. Author's done. Such dynamic content. Yay. Okay, moderation state is now review. Okay, the reviewer takes over. Okay, the reviewer can change the state to draft, request publish, or leave it in review. Depending on where they're at, who calls them on the phone, the end of the day, lunchtime, whatever. Reviewer changes the state to request publish. Okay, the reviewer is not the publisher. The publisher takes over. The publisher publishes the content. Okay, content page is now published. As you can read, anyone with permission to view published content will be able to view the page. Such dynamic content, but yes, we have now published a piece of content onto the web. Okay, or onto something. Right? Okay, so now, what about what happens when you need to make a change after something's published? Hey, array for the web, right? It's not print, you can't just reprint it, you just make an edit, right? The author edits the page, saves the new edit as a draft. Okay? Okay, so here's something new. The author can view the latest version of the content page in the new latest version tab. The latest version of the content page is a revision and is not publicly viewable. Okay, that means that what we're looking at here is this tab here is new, something we haven't seen before. Okay, this is an unpublished, I don't want to say state because we're using that word so much, but this is the edit, but it is unpublished. Okay, just to iterate the point, right? At this time, the author and anyone else with permission to view published content can continue to view the published version of the content, right? So B is published, but C is what we want to publish, right? So, but we're we're doing our moderation of this content. Okay, so that's where the latest version tab comes from. Okay, the publisher can publish the draft from the form in the latest version tab, right? This is what I mean. This form will grow on you. I find it did. It grew on me, right? Or the publisher can also publish the draft in the node edit form. Okay, now the author or anyone else with permission to view the published content can view the edited content. Note the latest tab has rightly gone away. Okay, where does all this happen? Okay, it happens in revisions. Okay, so, I jumped ahead. So let's say, for instance, we decide we want to roll back to a revision, right? 423. 2018, we want to roll it back to this revision. So we revert it. Right? This is all Drupal. This is Drupal core. We've been doing all of this, since whenever, right? That's what we're saying here. Okay, reverting a revision. Okay, now it's telling us what we did. And again, we're back to the latest version. I don't know whether C is right or whatever, ABC, right? But now, revision is now the latest version until it is published, edited, reviewed, and finally published. Okay, so that's how it works. I don't know how much everyone actually looks at the revision table, but it's there for you, and that's where all of this comes from. Everything has been being made into a revision. Okay, the revision is published, end the story. Okay, the future, for the workflow initiative. Okay, back to the roadmap, which was this crazy guy here, which has been explained to me, and I never really got it when it was explained to me, but you can read it and you'll know a little bit more, but I'm trying to parse it a little bit for us, right? So we're going to look back at the roadmap, right? So the trash module, okay? So it's relatively, doesn't seem that difficult to me to imagine a trash module now that we're working with so much with our revisions. Since everything has been made into a revision, we could send some of those revisions somewhere else and call that revision a trash. Put a timer on it to have it completely deleted from the system. I don't know, something like that, right? I do remember that I presented something on Drupal 8.4, and there was a trash module in core. In Drupal 8.6, there is no trash module, so they must have dialed back in terms of what they were doing. But here's the general idea. Right, this comes out of the again, this is where. Right, we're a community of developers, but this is a core functionality, and what we're probably looking for more is more corporate buy-in on something like this. Like, I will say, I don't work for Pfizer, but Pfizer was the one that stepped up and really got this thing across the finish line. So this is where, because the level of complication involved here, that to finish this roadmap or to get some of the pieces moving again, we really need big buy-in, because this is, we're not looking at code, but the code on it is real complicated. But as you can see, we're just looking at something that's been added sort of innately into the core without changing anything else. You've got users, you've got roles, you've got permissions. All that's the same stuff. You've just got now new stuff, and you've got these few other functions. These few other things, the content moderation. Okay. So again, we're in another phase, right? A workspace module. And this is a pretty good definition, I thought. Right, just to have some idea of the level of complexity that we're talking about here. Not that there's anyone here from corporate that could actually help us, but this stuff, right? This is complicated. To get this to work, but it's free software, so someone's going to be able to give it to you in your core, and you're going to start to use it, like we are at MSK. We're about to roll out our content moderation system based on this, basically, because we're relatively simple in terms of what we publish, so we don't need so much, but I think there can be a lot of nuances added to this. Once you get the hang of it, the puzzle aspect of it, it gets pretty easy to work with. Here's another part of the roadmap: workspace conflict resolution. This would be when two users are working on the same piece of content, right? How do you resolve that? Okay. Cross-site content staging. This phase would implement support for cross-site content staging. That's what the deploy module does. Okay, we put all our content on test or on dev. We push it up to test. We push it up to production. Right? Cool stuff. This is all what we're trying to do. I would like to help out more. I've written some documentation on content moderation, but like I say, this is a big initiative. It's been going on for several years now. Autosave. Another big phase. They're only just talking about this one so far. I won't even show you the bullet points, but think of what it is, right? This would be an autosave. You are offline, but you want to do your work. You want to save stuff. Okay, you come back online. This is great that Drupal is thinking of this. This is great. This is like you're offline on your phone. You're throwing out your email, right? You're going through your email, like going through that god-awful email, that spam list, right? Right, you throw all those away. You're offline because I'm in the subway, right? So I'm offline. I get home. I don't want to open up my computer now and see those emails, right? That's autosave. Right? Drupal wants to do that too? Solid. Okay, so there are one or two add-ons that we'll talk about. This is the diff module. We've heard of that before. Okay, what does the diff module do? I really didn't know until I investigated it from this thing. Looked at the core and see it's doing this. And what's the diff actually doing for me? Well, it's doing great things for me, but what is it really doing? Is it's giving me this metadata. I don't know how readable that is, but if you work with the diff module, you'll see this gets pretty detailed in here, telling you what your diff actually is. So it's a nice add-on. Why not, right? Then there's this other sort of cool bean stuff, which is like this thing called moderation sidebar. And we can enable that, if we want. CC starts to dress up a little bit. Okay, I've got some helpful links on all of this. And 25 minutes. Ooh, went real fast. So if you have questions or anything, Good.
Maybe I spaced out for a second and missed it, but is there like a review queue or anything like that? So how does a reviewer know that something is waiting for moderation?
You don't.
No, they do. That's a very. I mean, sorry. I mean, they do. So we look at the content, right? We look at the content page.
Can you click? Yeah.
Okay. There's your list. There's a new view, right? These pages are all made out of views, by the way, in Drupal 8. There's a new view that has the moderated content.
Okay. And can you? I guess you play with roles more. Could you push certain content types to certain reviewers?
Certain reviewers.
So, say my office does research and fellowships. Research ones go to one user, and the fellowships will go to the user.
So the question is, can you push certain content to certain reviewers?
Yeah, I mean, Drupal's super granular, so probably the answer is yes.
Yes, think about it, right? We have a yes to that, right? We're just talking about, because you referenced two roles then, right? Did you not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this might require some re-architecting of your roles. That's what I mean. That sort of thing, like roles and permissions, we kind of set up and then forget about them. You might want to look at them again in case it's not so.
My remark, I'm sorry, about the not being notified is they have to go and look to see if they have anything. The reviewer would have to look, whereas
Sure.
There's no notification to the reviewer. You have
Right.
something in your queue, which will be part of what was the old Workbench moderation email module.
That's what you're asking for, and that's a very good question.
Or we'd have to set up rules.
Yeah. Well, this rule, like rules can maybe do that. I don't know. I'm never been a fan of rules.
Yeah.
Not out of the box. This is foundational work. That was the first thing that one of my senior content editors said. Well, what about notifying me that I have some work instead of sending me here? We're on a small team, so they spend a lot of time on this page. So that's not a problem for them. But yeah, sure. Why not? What about an add-on that does that? That takes the content moderation and shoots out an email. Okay.
Eric.
Yeah.
Has there been talk of, so the content moderation stuff is always focused, well, it's always focused on nodes, but in your demo you can apply moderation to any comments too, right? Any entity can get, that's...
Exactly, yeah, we'll mention that we
Yeah,
can...
that screen shows you, right? Comments are posted to that.
Well, let's see, this was blocks. It comes with blocks. I'm not sure what's happening with comments, right? But blocks are available. I know paragraphs will show up here as a possible target of the workflow.
Surprised that comments aren't there because it's...
Yeah, it seems like it's
review, publish.
Well, let's see, because we would expect that. We would expect that this, not managed fields, we would edit this. We would expect that this would be. Am I in the right place for comments?
I don't know if you have comments on, could call it manage.
Possibly not on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen comments on. Are there any other questions? No comments.
Cool.
Okay, well, thank you.